Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner Podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host, joined by my blue collar badass. And that's right, guys. It is just us this week. So, Matt, how's it going in lovely old Michigan, man?
Things are good, Dylan. It is busy season in its finest, right? With personally, we've got sports every day, once a day, twice a day. It's nuts keeping up with my kids. Business is booming. The weather's starting to break. So construction is it's flying at gangbusters right now. How about yourself, man?
Same here. Like being in the software and consulting world more than on the actual in the field stuff, but I notice it, right? Like I notice buildings going up, I notice new developments going in, and even up in my community, I mean, there's tons of stuff being built. And when I drive down into the Bay or over to Sacramento, man, the amount of building that's been going on has just been gangbusters. I mean, from residential developments to office parks, which I don't know what they're going to do now, but on some of those projects that were greenlit, years ago. But it's still cool to see that, even out here in California where prices are extremely absurd, that things are still building and moving and shaking, which is, again, it's just good signs for the economy and, for at least the next year or two in the construction world.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I had the opportunity yesterday to take my middle son downtown to a Tigers game at Comerica for a field trip, right? They called it outdoor classroom STEAM day or some shit. And it was the learning part of it was pretty hokey. It was obviously a good play by the teachers to get they down at the ballpark, which it was cool. Weather turned out to be great. But if you've never been to Comerica, it's a really cool stadium, right? Because you're right down in the middle of Detroit. And I've spoken vocally about Detroit and my thoughts of everything going on down there. But if you're in that 2-block radius around Comerica, around the other stadiums, like, it's pretty cool what they're doing. And you can sit in the ballpark right now and you see the city from inside, and there's construction all over the damn place. There's tower cranes up swinging around, and it was kind of cool. I was sitting next to a dad of one of Lucas's buddies, and he was asking, he's like, what is that thing sticking up over the building over there? And just to be able to kind of describe what's going on. And I'm like, yeah, you see that little box on the crane? Like, there's a dude in there and he has to climb that thing every morning. And I don't know, it was fun to see, building going on again. And it was a cool day nonetheless.
Well, that's just it, right? Those little education pieces, those little opportunities that you get to, teach somebody, to help them learn, to show them what's going on, right? And no judgment. Like, it's amazing to me. I'm seeing people that, lived in some really nice places and all this stuff. So now they're going in like homesteading, right? And the amount of skills they've got to learn or like just didn't know. Like one woman that I follow was living on the beach in San Diego and now, or in La Jolla, and La Jolla, and now is like in Idaho and like got cows and all this stuff and on a well. And it's like, well, you need like water softening pellets and filters and all this stuff that I think a lot of us, end up taking it for granted, especially in construction, all the things that we know in like how something goes together, or, the little parts and pieces that bring a building into fruition is, we kind of underestimate those, skills that we've gained over years and really a lifetime.
Yeah, the skills and the knowledge. And I mean, that actually brings up something I forgot that I wasn't going to bring it up today, but last Friday we hosted our first FOF. And if you know what it stands for, it. If not, then you're missing out. But it was our first official blue collar badass event. We hosted it here in my neck of the woods, and we ended up with I think about 50 people came out. And the goal was to celebrate just that, right? Celebrate the knowledge and the skills that we've all built as a construction community, as the blue collar world. And it was a cool event nonetheless. I mean, it was awesome, right? We all kind of blew off a Friday afternoon, had some beers, we went bowling, had some great food. But it's neat to recognize that, right? That not everyone knows how to do what we do, and it's easy to take it for granted. It's easy to take for granted, we know what you and I know what a tower crane is without even having to think about it. We know how foundations are put in, we know how, dirt's moved, but the average person really doesn't. And it goes both ways. I mean, this guy I was telling you about yesterday, he's in robotics, and they basically, it's pretty neat. He's building these robots now for the Ford Lightning, the electric truck. They're building so few of them that they're not putting them on assembly lines. They're actually putting them on these autonomous robots that can carry the whole damn vehicle and zip it around. So instead of the linear fashion of like Henry Ford, these things can go in circles. They don't need these giant, impossibly long buildings. But point being, like, it's just cool to talk with people and to gather with people from different backgrounds. I don't know shit about robots, and I still don't, but it was cool talking with him, and likewise kind of filling him in on, here's what you're looking at. Here's how these buildings are built. Here's, why does it take so long to build these buildings? Well, let me tell you, buddy. So just good stuff out there all in general.
Right. Well, and it's the same way, like, why did it take you so long to build this robot? Well, the building of the robot wasn't that hard. So software to run the robot that took 5 years, like those types of things, which is just like, it takes 6 months to get a shell up and then 2 years to finish it out.
Right.
It's like that stuff for especially the bigger buildings, right? Like, why are they not done yet? This thing's been up for 2 years. Well, turns out there's more than steel and glass that goes on inside of these things.
Yeah, it's, those are buildings outside of my scope, right? The large ones, the big skyscrapers or whatever you want to call them downtown. They're cool to see. One of my lead superintendents currently, in a previous position, he put the penthouse edition on top of the Detroit Athletic Club, which again, if I'm still on this buzz from being in Detroit, but if you're at the DAC from this new penthouse, you look down directly into Comerica Park. And he was the superintendent on that job, and he's told me stories like, it's downtown Detroit, man. There's no room anywhere. And so they had a crane mounted on whatever street it is. I don't even know the name, but the crane operator is down, 15 stories below, and he can't see anything. So superintendent and the crane operator are literally communicating via, walkie-talkies, via radios. And it's like, okay, keep lifting up, now move left, blah, blah. I don't know their coordinates or how they actually do it, but the dude in the crane is blind, and he's swinging in, heavy steel. And it's just cool to even think about, let alone to see.
Yeah. Which, I mean, so the transition here is into building skills, right? And to knowing what you have and to like look back on it, like some of these foundational things, right? Like how to swing a hammer, how to put some boards together, how to pull a nail. Like, you wouldn't think that that's a skill in our world, but I mean, it's very, very basic. But there's a lot of people that frankly don't know how to put anything together. From simple wood framing to tying rebar, right? Or bending conduit, or putting in, plumbing couplings, or whatever it might be, right? There's a lot of things that people just don't know how to do, which is again why they hire us and pay for our services, and then again, it goes into some of what we talked about last week in relationships is, man, you got to charge accordingly for those services, and understanding that you have a skill set that other people don't have. And that's why they're calling you, right? Whether you're a plumber, an electrician, a carpenter, like some people might be able to hack something together, but you're a pro, and, charge accordingly is the other side of this. But at the end of the day, it's building skills. And we need to realize that we have a lot more skills behind us than you might think.
Yeah. And, you started with kind of building foundations, and that, it's an analogy that holds true with building buildings, obviously, but as much as it does with building businesses, building teams, you have to start at the bottom floor. You have to start with solid foundational work and education and knowledge and grit, because if you don't, you're building upon junk. And when you start getting, whether your building starts getting taller or your business starts getting bigger, if you don't have those foundations in place to support and protect everything else, it's all going to crumble down. And it kind of goes into, one of the things I wanted to touch on today was scaling and hiring in business. And it ties a lot into that, I think. Setting up systems and processes for your business at a foundational level. I've never really done it, right? I've talked about it with people. I've heard tons of mentors and experts tell me how important it is. And I've never really done it because we've always been so small that, most of the shit's in my head, and we've gotten by just fine for the last few years doing it that way. Well, I'm starting to see things now that, the holes in the boat are stretching in my own company. We're growing at pretty good pace. A great example is early last week, I was down in Raleigh with you and Chris doing your Yonder Digital thing, getting some content. I was gone for basically 2 days, 2 full weekdays by the time I kind of reconnected. And man, all hell broke loose at the construction company. I know why now. We figured it out. We patched those holes that came out, but really what it boils down to is at a foundational level, I haven't set those systems in place, set them in stone, so that if I disappear for a couple of days or a week or whatever it is, that, my people can still keep the ship moving in the right direction. And we had nothing catastrophic, but we had some pretty significant things that came up that had the propensity to be really, really bad situations. And we got lucky that nothing really bad happened, but I kind of wanted to focus on that level today a little bit. I know you're way better at that sort of stuff than I am, as far as breaking it down and following the process. So I guess I'm just curious what your thoughts are on, not necessarily systems on a specific level, but the generality of, why they're so important and how the hell we're supposed to actually do it, put them in place, put them out to our people and use them.
So one, this is a big topic, like to not take this lightly at all for everybody out there. In building these systems, these foundational pieces, and I've seen it through every firm type I've worked for, is the old guys that have been around for a while have it all in their head. And how you learned was you got sat next to the nicest old guy, let me put it that way, and who had some propensity to teaching, or some senior guy that'd been around for 7-8 years, which is senior in our business. Some guy that's seen it, all gone through enough life cycles to be able to basically pass on that knowledge. And you just hoped that they were good. There was no formal anything through it, and it was like just scenario based on whatever projects you happen to get on. Which thinking back to like career pieces for a lot of you guys, is this is like small firm versus big firm stuff. You need to be in a probably a mid-sized firm to start. A firm that does big enough projects to where you can learn some of these nuances on big projects. Because being in a small firm, you're going to be on everything, but you're not going to have big enough projects to really learn the skills you need. And then if you're in a big firm, early in your career, you're probably not going to get the responsibilities that you need to gain the skills that you want. So that's kind of a skill and foundational level for earlier in your career. And it just so happened that I was in the right companies at the right time with the right skill sets to be exposed to these things. Like in the small company I worked for, we were super specialized and like I had the knowledge and the degree to go and do a lot of things that, most people wouldn't have had the opportunity to go and do. So I got to go in factories, I got to lead projects, I got to do all that kind of stuff. I got to do a ton of engineering, and to do that really early in my career was super beneficial, to where the next firm that I went to, because I had all this experience, I moved up a couple of rungs in the ladder. But all that to be said, when you look at these foundational things, one, it can't be hoping and praying. Like, you cannot hope and pray that, the next person that you bring in is going to absorb whatever. Like, you've got to be more intentional about how you learn and how you educate. And this has been a thing that I've tried to hammer on in the firms that I worked in, and passing on this knowledge, and to do it in a way that made sense, right? Like, all your old guys, frankly, they want to tell stories. And I mean, I've hammered on this for years. I've talked about it here too, but like, they want to tell stories. So if you can have a story hour with, Bob, like, that is the best way that you're going to be able to transfer more knowledge faster, by doing like story hours. Then you record it, and then you have that as training content. So like, the next person that comes in, and Bob's not telling the same story over and over, even though he's probably going to do it anyway. Like, there's those things where, from just a knowledge standpoint, and we'll get into systems, but from a knowledge transfer standpoint of like, just like your superintendent's telling stories of like a crane flying blind, like that is a neat story. And then you can go into the details of like, this is how we communicated. This is how we talk to tower crane operators. This is, like all the other detailed pieces in there of telling that story. And again, most people might never run into that, but if they ever do, they're prepared for it. So a lot of this is super foundational stuff. And to get your senior people to tell stories, record it, do it as an event, serve some drinks or whatever, like, get people to show up, mainly, have pizza, do it as a lunch and learn, and get your senior people to tell a story about a project. And you probably got to pull it out of them, but this is a really, frankly, easy way. And something I've been pushing for a long time, because they're not at the end of the day, what most firms wanted was, hey, principal, sit down and please write a 10-page report on, fenestrations, or, on sizing equipment, or XYZ. They're never going to do it, like, period. They're never going to write that report. They're not going to sit down and write, but they will sit down and tell a story for an hour, because that's easy. So that's like the easiest way to do knowledge capture. Now, on the other side of that, for systems, and we were talking about this before we started, is so these systems, these foundational pieces for your business, they're going to take some time, but it's going to be so much, the power that you're going to gain from putting these systems together is, it far outweighs anything else you're going to do. And yes, it's going to take time. It's going to take a ton of energy. It's going to take way longer than you think. But like, for me and my software, like, I'm just releasing a product, and it took me far less time to do a new product now, because I learned the skill of software, right? And I've learned some skills of copywriting. I've learned some skills of video editing. I've learned some skills of speaking and doing this podcast. Like, I've learned a lot of skills along the way to where, in putting them together, now it doesn't take as much time, because, we built some foundational pieces to then connect it all. But each individual piece of that puzzle, for like my stack in software, like, it took years to figure out software. It took another, like, just my licensing took, 6 months to figure out and put together. It took me another, now this time, and doing a connection, like, it took me, 3 days, right? Like, to automate some fulfillment side of it. But so in creating systems, and look at your company from like foundational levels, is like, what do you need in each process? So the big ones and the simple ones for us is like meeting agendas, meeting minutes. Like, how do you do those things? Right. And like, that is a skill and a way of being organized. Like, organization is a skill. You go down the list of design, like, this is how we design things. These are our criteria. This is our standard. Nobody has them. So you are not alone. Like nobody knows. It's just, this is the way that this engineer designed some stuff. We don't have a company standard. Do whatever you want. The engineer in charge, or architect in charge that's stamping it, we do it their way. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. Like it's have at it, So there have some standards, like don't be afraid to put things in place of this is how we design stuff. This is the company standard. This is how we do things, and that can be for a lot of stuff, right? Like this is, not only how we run meetings, but like this is how we set job site trailers. This is where we put them. This is how we do schedules. This is how we build estimates. This is how we walk a job site. This is, and how we do inspections. This is how we do walkthroughs. This is, and you got a checklist for everything that you do, so that again, it's very detailed and done out, and nothing is above having a checklist. Well, you might think like setting a job site. Let's just take that, setting a job site trailer. You might think, well, shit, everyone knows how to do that. Well, do they?
They do not, man. And you're hitting it right on the head. When last week when I was down in Raleigh, it's the simple shit, right? Our issue, one of them last week, stemmed from naming convention of files, right? How do you name files and where do you put them on our server? In my mind, like, well, shit, that's just common sense. It's easy. You follow what I've done and do it the same way and don't screw it up. Well, what happened was somebody couldn't find something that they needed immediately. I'm on an airplane, or doing whatever I was doing, and I'm not readily available. So, all hell starts breaking loose. And it's something as simple as that. Like, okay, this is how we're going to name files. And there is no latitude there either. And that's what I think, I've known this for a long time. I've just never put the procedures in place. I've never taken the time to write it down and put it in front of my people and say, like, there is no more discussion on this. This isn't a community event, right? This isn't a democracy. This is how we name files, and these files go in these spots, period. If you don't like it, tough shit. And that's what I've spent a good chunk of my morning today starting to do, is starting to actually, write these checklists out, get them documented so that I can at least start the process. I've had lots of conversations. Like I said, I talked with some mutual friends of ours even last year about how to do this and like how to start setting up systems and documenting. And it's great conversation, right? But it's like with anything else in successful business, if you don't implement the stuff you're learning and you're talking about, you're just filling up headspace for no reason. And that's what I've been doing, candidly. And I'll be the first to admit it. I've been having the conversations. I've been learning more about it. I know what needs to be done, but I haven't done it. So as of today, that's changing, because it's the stupidest things, right? But it's that foundational level. And again, like tying that back, if your foundations are off, your whole building is off. And if it's the same in business. So I'm kind of going back to the start and writing all this stuff down. And we're going to do this now while there's, we're still not a huge company by any means. We're still pretty small and lean, but we're growing. And I've learned that the more people you add on, the more different perspectives you have. And again, the way I lead my company is very open, and I want input and I want autonomy from my people. But there's certain things that, okay, that's done. We tried that experiment. There is no more autonomy on how you name files and where you store them, period. We're going to document it, and that's how we're doing it. And next issue, let's go.
Well, and it's finding the best way, right? And once you find the best way, you leave it be. Like in one of the companies that I work for, and we had absolutely the best file structure like that I've ever seen. It was project number. Like this is how every single thing got set up. And there was like a file that admin pulled from to set up every project was so file numbers, the project numbers, the main folder. So that's how we did everything. It wasn't by client, it was by project number, which got assigned sequentially every year. So it was year and then like 101. Like that is how we did. So it was like 2014.123 or whatever the project number was for the year. And it got assigned. And then once that got assigned for accounting, which our timesheets got set up, then the file structure got set up, and then they pulled and dragged the whole file structure, and it was named, every folder was 1, 2, 3, 4 within it mainly. So this is the other trick, is because then you can use hotkeys. So then in your file naming, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4 to whatever, and however many's in each tree, then you can, you basically type to the project number, type, 3 for your folder, like, if electrical's 3 or 4, then, I could find it. And then within that, the file structure was always the same. So you knew where everything was within each file structure. Like, this is where the Revit models go. This is where calculations go, and it's named calculations, like all those. I mean, it sounds silly, but like the amount of time that saved over, however many projects we did, to where everybody knew where everything was throughout the firm, right? Anybody could go and like pretty logically try to find a file that they were looking for, because each one was set up the same way. So, and each folder was like, well, this is where the Revit models go for every discipline. Like, that's how it worked out. But that was like the best file structure that I had ever seen.
You have to have something like that. You have to have standardization, because if I get hit by a bus on the way into the office tomorrow, all of that organization that I've built that I think is great and really works, it's gone, right? And now you're adding countless hours for someone else to try and dig through the pieces and rebuild it from scratch. And it's like a treasure hunt at that point. So
Yeah.
it's just,
yeah. The simple way to do some of this too, for like file structure and anything digital, take screenshots, put it in a Word doc, print it. Like, that is the simplest way to build out some of these things. And from a foundational level, like, again, it's going to take time. You got to think through everything that you're doing. Nothing is too mundane, oh, I'm blanking on his name. The Bruins head coach in the 70s, Woodson, the most winning in like college UCLA Bruins coach. He, and I'm like, it starts with a W. I'll think of it. At every year, he started with tie and shoes. That is what he started every single year off with. Because if shoelace comes untied on the court, like, now you're not where you need to be, because you're tying your shoes. Like, it was that simple, that foundational, and he did it every single year.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's, as simple as it seems. It's just, you got to have structure with which you can work. And it's the structure that helps us keep online and keep building the way we need to.
Yeah. John Wooden, that was a coach.
Wooden. Yeah. There you go.
His book's pretty good, but yeah, that's what he started with every year. So when you go through checklists, like, nothing is too small. So, and break it down to those simple pieces, and thinking through, like, what do you do, and like on each one, right? Like, how do you think through setting up a like job site trailer? What goes in the job site trailer? Where do things go? Where does a table go? Where's the TV mount? Like, we do that in blueprints. Like, it's the same thing. Like, somebody had to pick where something went.
And you got to keep it easy. It's got to be simple and easy to understand, simple to implement, so that there's no room for error. And that's kind of what we've been dealing with. We, another one of our issues that came up. So I implemented, when I first came on board, an unlimited time off policy, unlimited vacation time. And the reason, or the mindset is like, listen, we're all professionals. We all run really fast. We keep our foot on the gas. We're fighting 100 to 0 every day. We're all responsible enough to get the hell out of Dodge for a day, a week, whatever, however long you need, and make sure that when we leave, everything's handled in our absence. Well, that was issue number 2 that came up, is we had a superintendent off for a couple of various days and a couple of various reasons. And I knew about it because he told me, but I'm not the gatekeeper of that sort of shit anymore. Like, I'm not the admin staff. I'm not the guy who's going to handle that sort of thing. So I just kind of blew it off. Like, yes, I knew he was going to be gone. He told me, fine, great. Well, I'm in Raleigh and we've got literal foundations going in on a project and we don't have a superintendent there. And I didn't learn this until after I was back, and I wasn't back in my office till Thursday. So now everything's fine. You know, again, this plays on like our fail safes, are the team-based approach at how we go about the market. You know, we've been working with our foundations contractor for 30 plus years, maybe even more. So I know that if stuff started going haywire, I would get a call no matter where I was at. And so would my business partner, and we'd work through it. But that's not the point. The point is, you know, what if the worst happened? What if something bad happened? What if layout was off? What if somebody got hurt? Even something as simple as, what if our client showed up on site that day and wanted to talk to someone about what the hell was going on? And they're looking around and there's this nice, you know, job trailer with our name all over it and it's dark. Like, just a litany of things that could happen. And again, we got really lucky. You know, nothing happened. So we live to see another day and we keep on fighting. But it's just the simplest of things. Like in that case, it's chain of command, chain of communication. Who's supposed to handle that sort of information? And, you know, that's a learning curve that we all have in our organization, that I'm not the guy anymore. Like, I'm purposely distancing myself from some of those activities and those routines because I have to, right? We're growing, we're scaling. I have to be able to focus on different level activities. So when you call me and say, hey, Matt, I'm going to be gone next Tuesday for this, and this, I'm going to say, sweet. And assume that you're then going to have that same conversation or send an email to the people that really need to know that. For me, it's just conversational, right? And, you know, I'm kind of rambling about it, but that was what happened. And we had the conversation this week about it in person. Like, listen, this can never happen again. You're free to take time off. We all need time off, but you need to let this person know, and this person will let this person know. And then everything's covered and the system keeps on moving. You know, it's an old philosophy I've heard numerous times, but I just read it again in a book we were talking about before we came on. The book's called Anything You Want by a guy named Derek Sivers. But the philosophy that you need to build your business so that it can run without you, period. That you can be detached from the business for a day, a month, of friggin' year, and the business is going to keep growing and keep getting better and better. And by the time you come back, it's blown up, and it's a great thing. And you do that through systems and through structure and through, you know, empowering people to make their own decisions within the guidelines and the framework that you have set up through your systems.
I mean, we operate through systems in construction. You know, like most people know it intuitively. It's just not written down. And that's realistically where the like problems come in, is making sure that it's ordered properly. You spend some time thinking through it, that you're not missing steps. And obviously something's going to get missed, you know, but it's getting it out there. It's adjusting, it's improving, it's adding, you know, the little things to the list and making sure they get done. And having, you know, and something simple for like, you know, superintendents, project engineers, like, what are your daily checklists? You know, what are the things you need to do on a daily basis, no matter what? You know, walk the job site. Like, it's simple. And then here's another checklist for when you walk the job site, right? Like, there's all sorts of things that are like, we would assume to be basic, but at the same time, like, if a superintendent, you know, doesn't walk a job site for 4 days, that's probably a problem, right? Like, there's small things, I say small, but there's things like that, you know, have a cascading effect when not done. So don't take anything for granted. Like, put that list together, make it a checklist, print them out, you know, have a binder of days and all that kind of stuff to where, you know, hey, the list got done today, or no, it didn't. And like, and I would physically print them out so that you like, you can go back to it. You have records. It's not just on your phone. And there's some, nice pleasure of being able to check things off a list. So like printing and physical copies, like as much as we love the digital age, like for somebody to have to like go and find the list and check it off.
Yeah, and it's helpful. I think it's super important the smaller you are, especially because in the larger company I came from, there was nothing documented. There was no written down procedures or checklists, but the company was big enough that if one person wasn't there for a week or 2 weeks, there's somebody else that has the answer, or that knows what is supposed to happen. Well, flip that down to a company my size or smaller, or a startup, you might not have those other people that know what's going on in your head, or that know how things are supposed to be done. And that's when it's mission critical that they can pull up their checklist, right? Whether it's digital, printed, however, it's got to be documented in some form or fashion. So that's what the rest of my week looks like. If anyone wants to come hang out, and it's going to be a wild party, I'm going to be in my office just making checklists until my hands are bleeding.
That's even a good point. So in big companies, like, and I'd push back a little bit on that, is that, yeah, there's people around to like help you, but we've all been on those projects with the big firm, and you got some schmuck who didn't know which way was up and, floundered through it, but he got that because he's in a big company. The company won, not, Joe Blow that got put on the job. And that goes for design as well as construction. Like, I've seen some, like, somebody that happens to work at a big design firm, and it's like, do you know what you're doing for this massive building? Like, and the same thing goes on the construction side. Like, you get a superintendent that like doesn't know how to run a meeting or deal with change orders, and it's like, do I have to teach you how to do your job? As like MEP guy, like on this thing, like, come on, man. But it's the whole point of, can you take anybody off the street and they run your checklist? And it shouldn't matter, like, because really within a big company, right, every project's its own job, right? It's its own company, it's its own P&L for every project, and we should treat them as such.
Yeah, for sure. And by no means that I mean like the big companies shouldn't have them. I just meant my experience was we just didn't. So
yeah, they don't.
in my world, like, yeah, this is easy. It's all common sense. But we keep beating a dead horse. You need to have them, and it's time that for us especially that we're going to start working on it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this: it's so important that it's worth talking about ad nauseum. Like, it really is, guys, because you don't have them. I almost guarantee you that you don't have it. You don't have a process for handling emails. You might have a process for handling change orders. It's not written down. You might have a process for POs. It's not written down. You might have a process for like title blocks, but it's Bob's process or Tina's process. It's not, ABC, it's not Acme process, right? Like, it's not the company process. It's whatever PM that you're on, and there's for sure certain things in design with certain clients that they want certain things, but design shouldn't really change, that you shouldn't change how you design things because it's company XYZ. Like, you should still follow your design principles. Yeah, they might want this chair or that thing, but so there's some nuance in it, but understand where like the actual nuances and the client specific requests versus general practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And and what we're doing, I want input from my people, and I want everyone to have some amount of buy-in to it to a degree, so that they feel good about the way we're doing things. And I'm not blind enough to suggest that all of the ways I do things are the best, because for F's sake, I know that's not the truth, right? It's not even close. But at the same hand, if no one else is going to pipe up and no one else is going to take part in this, then my way is going to be it. So I want people to have buy-in so that we get the best system, the best process down. But then after that, it's not we can continually improve. If we find a new way to do something, we can bring it back and revise things. But, we're going to set these systems up once, and that's it until we formally agree to change it in the future. And, it can't be a fly by night thing. So whether it's the design side or construction side, there's going to be a list of activities, a list of structure that this is how we're going to approach every single project from now on until we decide there's a better way. And as a group or as a autocracy, we handle that and change it.
That's super important. So most people you set your system and then you get input from whoever, right? Or that you run it for a week and somebody doesn't like it and so this is where it really gets tricky. They happen to be a principal. They happen to be somebody who's been there for a while and throws a hissy fit about change. You have them guaranteed. Like, you have some dude who's got a fancy title, been there a while, that is going to be all butthurt about whatever you're going to do. You have to hold the line and hold the standard of like, this is what we agreed to. You're not doing it. Like, tough shit, Mr. Principal. Like, this is the way it is. Like, just because it's your project, that doesn't mean shit. Like, you go talk to, the CEO or someone else, and if they change it for the company, we will change it. But until then, you're SOL. And that is going to be the hardest thing, is to hold that line and hold it for a considerable amount of time. It's not a week, it's not a month, it's 3, 6, 9 months of holding that line, or however many projects you go through, right? It's really more that you need to go through 10, 100 projects, 50, pick a number. Hey, did this work on every single one? Or really by the 10th one, hey, this turns out to be pretty good because we got used to the process now and it works. And to not change too quick once you implement these things. You've got to actually see them through and understand the first couple are going to be rough because not everyone is used to that process. But once they're used to it, then you actually see how it works. And that's going to be the toughest thing, especially depending on how big your project size is and how many you do of that phase of a project, right? Like project setup or, file naming, that's one thing. But the other side of it, like in file structure or initial project setup, you might do 4 of those a year. Well, now you need 2 years to actually see what this looks like.
Totally. And that's 2 years of buy-in from your team. That's 2 years of commitment from yourself and your team to get that 2 years of data. And, it's whatever. I mean, owning and running a business isn't supposed to be easy. There's a lot of simple principles that are real easy to talk about. Implementation is not always that way, but there's just certain things like this that there's no other option.
Yeah. And I'll hammer it home here is it takes time, and all this is foundational. Just like in pouring foundations, it's some of the longest process in a job, but it's one of the most important. And then everything else after that becomes pretty quick. And if those foundations aren't set well, if you don't have those systems and processes in place and they're rock solid, you're going to crumble at some point, or you're going to be running the same trap that you are of, you're a 15-person shop and you will forever be that because you can't handle anymore. So, I mean, some of this is also lifestyle choices and what do you want your life to look like and be? And this goes for if you're a PM, if you're a principal, if you're a designer, if you're a superintendent, like it doesn't really matter where you are in that hierarchy. What does matter is, can you hand it off to somebody and bring them in easily, help train them? And at the end of the day, that will make your life better, because you're not having to worry about all these little parts and pieces that get left out. And again, you're not alone. Most companies don't have a solid set of process or procedures down. They just really don't. So you're not alone, but that doesn't mean to stay where you are. It means to keep improving and moving. With that, Matt, any other final words?
Just on that same lines, you gotta hold yourself accountable to it, but it's really helpful to find someone else also to hold you accountable. So fair warning, I'm going to use our show here as that, and we'll check in from time to time. It's not going to be every week by any means, but I want you to hold me accountable, because if nobody's watching and nobody's keeping score, then we as humans tend to get real lazy. And I think that could be the key to finally getting it done, is whether it's you or my wife or my business partner, whoever, my kids, I don't care. Somebody asking, hey, did you get this done? Did you implement this? And then I got to answer to them. And it's human nature to want to say yes, right? To want to be in the winning team. So that's my motivation anyways.
Good motivation.
Yeah, man.
All right, guys, this has been a super tactical episode. We covered a lot of ground. Go back, listen to it. More so, set this down and go do something. Make a list and do the list. It's pretty simple at the end of the day. So thank you all for listening. And I know you got something out of this one. So please share the show, send it to a coworker that needs to build some lists, make some checklists, and get your principals, get your senior guys in front of the camera and do some, fireside chats or lunch and learns or whatever you want to call them. Get people in and help pass on the knowledge that we've learned and the skills that we've gained over our years of experience in the industry. So thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time.